If there's one concept more iconic from Dragon Ball than the Kamehameha or Ki Blast, it's the transformations. We know the basic Saiyan family tree, god forms, and main villain forms, but what about those forms you do know, but haven't thought about how they could apply to other characters? What about those obscure forms from video games or shows that we never really talk about? I thought it would be fun to talk about some of them, and I placed them into 3 distinct sections: the underutilized, the unseen, and the unknown. Number 1, the underutilized. When I say underutilized, I don't necessarily mean they should have been used more. What I mean is that they weren't utilized enough to be as memorable as forms like Super Saiyan, but you should probably know they exist if you read or watched the original work. For example, whenever you see a new Saiyan, you always ask questions like, can they go Super Saiyan 1? Maybe 2? How about 3? But you never think, can they go max power like Roshi? And speaking of, that's the perfect way to start this section. Roshi's max power form is pretty straightforward. He buffs up enormously and is able to dish out tremendous power his normal form cannot utilize. On his second on-screen use of the form, he vaporizes the moon. It was an early display of the strength that characters at the top of the world have. However, in the original story, the form did not seem suited for combat. Roshi would stay stationary, only utilizing it for a devastating Kamehameha, then return to normal. And he'd usually be drained afterwards, so it only really hurt him in the long run. These principles are pretty consistent to most buffed up forms in Dragon Ball. They supercharge you, but at a cost to your speed and stamina. In a way, Super Saiyan Grade 3 seems to be the Saiyan equivalent of max power, but Goku deemed it wouldn't be able to defeat Cell despite the insane power increase. Seemingly though, by the time of Resurrection F and Super, we know Roshi had been training off-screen, and he's actually fighting mostly in his max power state. Perhaps pushing the limits and viability of this form was part of that training. Here's an interesting technique you might remember. The Shioken, or Fist of the Four Arms, or the Four Supernatural Fists, or the Four Witches technique, whatever you want to call it, is a classic Tien technique utilized by the Triclops aliens and their descendants. It probably isn't something other characters can learn, but Anime Filler had Piccolo and Krillin use Tien's multiform technique, so the possibility is not zero. Cell also used the multiform in Filler, and considering he would probably have Tien's DNA to do that, he could probably also do the technique himself. Fun little trivia fact. Toriyama said in an interview that Tien used the Fist of the Four Arms and the multiform technique together to effectively harvest crops after the Buu arc. Ever heard the term Super Namekian? It's not really a form, but more so a Namekian unlocking power beyond the capabilities of normal Namekians. Kind of like what Vegeta thought a Super Saiyan was on Namek. However, some games do treat it as an extra form for Piccolo. Grand Elder Guru believed that a progeny of the Dragon Clan, like the son of Katats, aka the Nameless Namekian, would not have died to a Saiyan if he remained as one being. Only a Super Saiyan would have a chance at beating him. If you watch my Saiyan video, you would know a Super Saiyan would more than likely have to be as strong as Goku at any point on Namek or higher, so the Nameless Namekian would have had to have been quite strong. After Piccolo's training since the Saiyan arc and absorbing Nail, he was able to outclass androids that were nearly Super Saiyan level, putting him in the same tier as Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks. Only after that did he absorb Kami to become the Nameless Namekian once again, making him incredibly powerful and the strongest Z fighter for a short while. As Krillin said, "If Goku's a Super Saiyan, Piccolo will be the Super Namekian." Other Namekians who gain large power through fusion can also be classified as Super Namekians, like the Universe 6 Warriors and the Namekian Savior sent to fight Moro. The only Namekian unfused, as far as we know, with this title is Lord Slug. Due to a mutation when he was born, he was 100% evil at birth and had incredible strength. King Kai says that perhaps not even Frieza or a Super Saiyan could stand up to him, though we never learn if that last claim is true, as Goku loses his new form before defeating him. He does get overpowered by a technique I will talk about later though, which could strengthen this idea. Majin Buu's classic gimmick was his absorption ability, and the games took fun liberties with this. In Budokai 2, he could absorb Frieza, Cell, Vegeta, and a hybrid of Tien and Yamcha. Dragon Ball Heroes gave him more absorptions as well, like Kabutokai, Babidi, and others I'll touch on later. And speaking of absorptions, what kind of monster would Cell have turned into if Goku wasn't able to escape him in GT? Considering base Goku was probably above Kid Buu based on all the gassing up he'd give other foes, and all the forms he had on top of that up to Super Saiyan 4, just food for thought there. The last form I want to talk about in this section isn't so much a single form, but the broad concept of unleashing potential. We know about the Grand Elder's potential unlock, Elder Kai's potential unleash, and Piccolo's power awakening from the Dragon Balls. But there are other forms and powers out there whose very foundation is about unleashing the potential of the user. The Majin spell by Babidi isn't a simple mind control, but also unlocks the user's potential and even pushes them beyond their natural limits, which Vegeta noted could happen to him after witnessing Spopovich's unnatural power against Videl, and therefore let Babidi control him. This can also be assumed the case for the Kings of Destruction from Dragon Ball Heroes, which were typically movie villains who became berserkers with blank eyes. Super Saiyan 3 is a Saiyan's hidden power drawn to its very limits, like a machine using up the entirety of its battery until it fizzles out. A similar concept is shown in Super Saiyan 4, being another way the Saiyan can draw upon their hidden power, while also utilizing the power of the Great Ape. This serves to show that the forms can be seen as examples of potential unlock. Now let's dive into the second section, the Unseen. Once again, the name isn't literal. Some of you probably have seen these characters in these forms, but I just wanted a cool name. I want to go over some forms we all know pretty well, but maybe not which characters had them, a lot of the time due to, you guessed it, video games. Kaioken isn't technically a biological transformation, but I want to talk about it anyway, so whatever. Krillin would utilize it in Supersonic Warriors during a what-if story where Goku dies from his heart virus and entrusts Krillin with the protection of Earth by training him and teaching him the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb. With all this training, he's actually able to defeat Cell and even Majin Buu, giving our boy quite the happy ending, even if Goku is still gone. Xenoverse 1 also gave special presets for Krillin and Yamcha where they can use Kaioken, which made me so mad when they didn't return in Xenoverse 2. I mean, like, come on, man, that's so cool. Some of you might remember the original source of Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. Back during the good old days of Raging Blast, you could have him fight Goku on equal footing, and the moveset they gave him was diabolical. And if that wasn't enough, the game also introduced Super Saiyan 3 Broly to showcase a real demon.
Broly, you look different. Wait, I see. You've transformed as well into a Super Saiyan 3. Kakarot!
Raditz and Nappa also achieved Super Saiyan 3 in Heroes, skipping the other two forms funny enough. In the actual story of Heroes, Raditz achieved the form after being stuck in space-time and wandering through countless alternate dimensions. It's literally what if Raditz was trapped and betrayed for a million years. Future Trunks would also achieve this form in the game as well, but it wouldn't be long before his Time Patrol version ascended to the next level and became a Super Saiyan God. Broly and Bardock would receive Super Saiyan 4 as time went on, always keeping these popular Saiyans relevant. Dragon Ball Z, the real 4D, also got a mysterious form called God Broly in the ride, and Goku has to fuse with the audience in order to stop him. Power scalers? Make of that what you will. One set of forms I want to talk about quickly is Baby's after possessing Vegeta. His three forms before Great Ape could be classified as Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3. The Dragon Ball GT Perfect file states that Strongest Form 2 resembles Super Saiyan 3, and between the bizarre long hair and lack of eyebrows, it does share a resemblance. It would also be poetic in that case if the only thing that could stop him was the next evolution, Super Saiyan 4. In Heroes, he would also come to fuse with Janemba and fellow Sufurian invention, Hachiyak. Oh, interesting. It appears in Legacy of Goku 2, Gohan actually had a different form when he snapped against Cell. Huh. I wonder what it could be. Cooler would eventually evolve himself into Golden Cooler in Heroes, a shiny upgrade to his final form. As the man said himself, "But if my little brother can do something, then so can I." He would even have an upgraded Metal Cooler body that could also go golden. Finally, we get to the last and longest section, forms you or the vast majority of fans may not know exists. Outside of one or two, most of these forms do not appear in any mainline Dragon Ball series. They usually stem from either the movies or games. But I always find these so fascinating due to either their background material or what they try to do to explain the forms. Oh, it's okay, little Dragon Ball fan. Super Dragon Ball Heroes has enough fake forms to feed you your entire life. Bandai, bring over Limit Breaker. The boy's hungry. Wah! Let's start with a fun one. Pseudo Super Saiyan, or False Super Saiyan as referred to by the fans, is the form Goku took on in the Lord Slug movie. What exactly is this form? Well, the truth is, it's just Super Saiyan. The movie's title in Japan is literally Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan Goku. The funny thing is, all Toriyama told the anime staff was the concept of Super Saiyan and that Goku's hair stands up. However, the movie premiered on March 9th, 1991, while Goku first transformed into a Super Saiyan in chapter 317 of the manga on March 19th, 1991. That means this movie premiered 10 days before Goku even went Super Saiyan in the manga. So lucky for people in Japan at the time that Toriyama was notoriously bad at coordinating with the anime people and marketing, or they would have been spoiled a week and a half early on what Super Saiyan looked like. As we know, Toriyama's assistant had a hard time coloring in Goku's hair over and over again. So to help him out, Toriyama created Super Saiyan as we know it today. But in another timeline, in another life, this is what Super Saiyan could have looked like. Regardless, as we discussed earlier, King Kai said a Super Saiyan may not be enough to stop Lord Slug, which leads us into one of the techniques that ultimately defeated him. As we know, Goku utilized the Kaioken to break through Lord Slug like it was King Piccolo Round 2. I mean, the whole movie pretty much was. But what level of Kaioken? He never said the multiplier. Sure, Piccolo gave him some energy, but was it really a simple 2 times multiplier that defeated Slug? Well, in the 1991 Shonen Jump issue, number 12, there is a section that says Goku uses the Kaioken times 100. A bold statement to be sure, as in the main story, Kaioken never goes above 20. It could make sense though, because if Pseudo Super Saiyan is literally just regular Super Saiyan down to its 50 times multiplier, then Kaioken times 100 would mathematically be twice as strong. But a Shonen Jump page mentioning it once is hardly enough to be conclusive. That is, until I found this footage. In the VHS releases of the movies, there would be recaps where the voice actors, mostly Nozawa as Goku, would narrate over the events. And just have a little listen to this. Moscow Nozawa clearly said Kaioken Hyakubai, which in Japanese means 100 times or 100-fold. So that there, while obviously not in the movie itself, feels pretty substantial to me. Kaioken also has some more fun variants to talk about. Super Kaioken might be the most well-known form of it outside of the main story, being featured in the Otherworld Tournament filler arc. It would technically be the multiplier of Super Saiyan 2, but Goku could only use it for a short burst before becoming exhausted. We can assume that this can only be used here because Goku's afterlife body is not bound to the same restrictions his mortal one had. Also, he had Super Saiyan 2 and 3 by the Buu arc, so there was no sense in using up his limited time on Earth with a technique like that. It did have one more official return in the form of Xenovegeto's Super Kaioken from Heroes. Besides its spiritual successor in Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken and Super, its other incarnations come in games, like Super Saiyan 4 using Kaioken skills in Xenoverse 2, and Maximum Kaioken in Dragon Ball Fusions. Staying on the topic of Otherworld Tournament content, we have my favorite fake Dragon Ball form, Super Saiyan Power. Originally, Goku was going to fight the Ginyu Force in Super Saiyan, but wanting to save it for later, Toei backtracked the decision and just colored in the hair black. The form itself isn't meant to be real, obviously, but the common term for it comes from Heroes cards which depict this design, and it has the ability Super Saiyan power. So the fandom took to this meaning it's the base form utilizing the ki of Super Saiyan, and so now anything even slightly resembling that description is now an example of this form. Classic Dragon Ball fans. Hey, here's a little blast from the past during the airing of Super. Remember when Krillin got that really weird power-up? He unlocked this state where his hands sparked with energy, but the rest of him was calm and serene, allowing him to effectively control his ki flow. It was the conclusion to Krillin's character arc he experienced over these past 2 episodes, where he learned to not be caught up by the fears of his past anymore. As Roshi puts it, he rose above himself, which has always been a core lesson of Roshi's teachings. Even if the art and animation stunk during these episodes, it was a nice little journey. But like pretty much all Toei original things, it was simply not acknowledged ever again. Krillin doesn't even use this in the Tournament of Power, or even the test during the recruitment part of the arc. It's like the filler was just that, filler that didn't matter. What a shame. Back before the days of Power Awakening and Orange Piccolo, Namekians had nothing in the way of powering up other than growing giant or fusing together. However, Dragon Ball Online decided to invent a form for them, the Red-Eyed Namekian. Getting the name, of course, because of the signature red pupils. Its initial showing seemed to be a Namekian answer to Super Saiyan, but later usage in the Dragon Ball Heroes Namekian avatars shows it's meant to be their Super Saiyan God equivalent, even taking on a blue-eyed form to match Super Saiyan Blue. While this form faded in time, things like Neva from Daima and Orange Piccolo would show that extremely powerful Namekians inherited this red-eyed trait. In Heroes, some of the Saiyan forms would see some interesting variations. For example, Cumber's strongest form is Super Saiyan 3 Full Power. In this state, he loses his pupils for the most part, his muscles expand, veins start bulging, and the hair becomes more orange. And the name makes it pretty self-explanatory. When several Saiyans transfer their ki to Xeno Goku and Xeno Vegeta, they achieve Super Full Power Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker, and take on a version of Super Saiyan 4 with red hair and a magenta aura. This is utilized by the previously mentioned Saiyans, along with Xeno Gogeta, Xeno Vegito, and Broly, of course. It was essentially a way to push the Xeno characters to Capsule Corp Goku and Vegeta's level, who were both post-Tournament of Power in terms of strength. And so while Xeno Goku's Super Saiyan 4 is on par with Super Saiyan Blue, the Limit Breaker form is meant to compete with Ultra Instinct Sign. However, it ended up losing to Perfected Ultra Instinct. Another form that got upgraded was Super Saiyan Rose. In the notes on this form that Toriyama gave for Super, he said Goku Black becomes a Super Saiyan like Goku, and a Super Saiyan of a slightly different color than Goku. This is why Toyotaro gave both Super Saiyan 1 and Rose to Goku Black. However, the anime staff may have interpreted this as Rose being his version of Super Saiyan 1. As we see, Goku Black's base form in the arc is absurdly strong in the anime, and a god-level amp would probably be too much for the cast. However, a simple Super Saiyan boost would have put him above the heroes in a way where they could still reasonably fight back. The staff on Heroes must have thought the same as Toei, as while Black is portraying himself as the Crimson Masked Saiyan, he showcases Super Saiyan Rose 2 and Super Saiyan Rose 3, something Goku and Vegeta have yet to try with their blue forms. He even accesses a form similar to Super Saiyan 3 Full Power Cumber, with Super Saiyan Rose Full Power. It is notable, however, that he gains a tail and eyebrows in this form, so it's almost like a midpoint between Super Saiyan 3 and 4. And speaking of villainous Saiyan forms, let's hit the funniest one, the Evil Saiyan form. A very redundant sounding concept. It's sometimes called the Densetsu no Aku no Saiyajin, or Legendary Evil Saiyan. It's a state usable so far only by the Ancient Saiyan Cumber and Turles. Side note, isn't it funny how Turles literally shares about 90% of Goku's hairstyle, making him the easiest character to make Saiyan forms for, yet they don't, and just give him stuff like this? I think that's really funny. This form lets them utilize their evil aura, which puts them on the level of god-level characters and beyond. Cumber is practically always in this state, and Turles gain it from chomping down on them fruits 24/7. This evil aura they radiate can infect other Saiyans, causing them to go berserk. However, Vegeta was able to control it and create the form Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Berserk Controlled. What a mouthful. Finally, I want to talk about the many forms associated with the Demon Realm from the video games. This is that prime, real edgy official Dragon Ball content. First off, we got Mira's forms, starting with his rampaging state, where he goes berserk and loses his armor. This state would also be utilized by Zeno Turles, which is different from the Evil Saiyan Turles, and Metal Cooler, though with much more violent and intimidating designs. This leads into Mira's next form, Super Mira, which he can utilize as he is a genetic hybrid with multiple races' DNA, including those of Saiyans. His hair stands up, but instead of turning gold, his eyes turn red with rage. He also passed this form down to his son Fu. In Xenoverse, which gets carried into Heroes, Mira enters his final form by absorbing Toa. In this state, he bears a striking resemblance to Super Saiyan 4. The antagonists of this era of Heroes also have the Demon God forms. This usually showcases markings around the eyes, and sometimes hair spiking up or horns growing. They can advance this form to a second level as well after a Dark King grants them more power. Some of them showcase a true form, where their body becomes more lizard-like and giant. This form can also evolve to another level, the Transcended state, varying in design depending on how they obtain the power. The Dark King is, as you may have guessed, the highest position in the Demon Realm, with Mechikabura and Fu being the only characters to utilize it once they gain the Dark Factor. Alright, enough of this rabbit hole, my head is spinning. It makes sense why Toriyama's Demon Realm and its power systems are much simpler, because I can't keep track of all this stuff. I wouldn't expect Toriyama to either. Now onto a Dragon Ball Online Classic power-up. Do you recall the Masked Saiyan? Well, that started when Dragon Ball Online Stories saw Toa and Mira kidnap Bardock and force him into that role. These masks not only control you, but are made to boost your power to incredible heights. Bardock, through these experiments, was able to achieve Super Saiyan 3, but even so, could hold back Mira in base form without the mask. Multitudes of other Saiyans were subject to these masks as well, all of them being as edgy as possible. The only non-Saiyan outside of a character creator to get masked was Super 17. Toyotaro also drew a concept for Janemba called Masked King of Destruction Baby Janemba, and this is kind of read as a joke as it's an individual who was taken over by Janemba, infected by Baby, then brainwashed by both Toa and Babidi. What a poor fate that guy had. Zeno King Vegeta, once he escaped from the mind control, whether due to arrogance or actual assurance in his own power, vowed to use his newfound strength to destroy Frieza and Beerus. But Bardock managed to put a stop to these ambitions once he also donned the mask again. There are multiple forms of mind manipulation in the games. The first is Villainous Mode, with its enhancement being the Atrocious form. These are states induced by Toa and Demigra to control characters and have these warriors gather them energy like Babidi's spell would. Toa would upgrade this into the form called Supervillain, a mode that would vastly increase power, but also shave away the life energy of the user in exchange. Fu would go on to take it a step further with Ultra Supervillain by embedding peak time crystals into the user's chest, which draws out latent strength but doesn't take over the mind. It simply makes them far more violent and malicious. Dragon Ball Legends also has its own take on this with Dark Ki.
Let's see. Hot dog, taco, hamburger. Hot dog, taco, hamburger. Hot dog, taco, hamburger. Hot dog, taco, hamburger. You only got 3 things on this menu!
Now finally comes probably the edgiest power-up yet, even after everything else we've already talked about. The Dark Dragon Ball Possessions. These red Dragon Balls with black stars will find evil entities across space-time and merge with them to power up, even developing new forms for some of them. The 1-star ball possessed Namek Arc Frieza, and would later possess him again while he was Golden Frieza. The 2-star ball possessed Cell, and he was given demonic energy to become Cell X, a form first introduced in Dragon Ball Online. Eventually, the 2-star ball would later lodge itself into Golden Metal Cooler to tag team Goku with Frieza. The 3-star ball would possess Kid Buu, who would go on to absorb Demon God Dabura and eventually Janemba. The 4-star ball would take over Turles, who would activate a violently visceral version of the rampaging state Mira employed. The 5-star ball would remain with Janemba and grant him another form, before eventually being absorbed by Buu. The 6-star ball would be embedded into Lord Slug, who would enter his Super Giant form and merge with the planet. And I avoided talking about him during the mass section for this point. The 7-star ball possessed Broly. Now let's just break this down for a second. This man had a Time Breaker mask on him. Toa and Paragus were trying to control him at the same time, all while a Dark Dragon Ball also tried subduing him, lodged in his chest. Yet, through sheer force of will, utilizing Super Saiyan 4, and having brand favoritism, he resisted it all. And after that, he got a sick 1v1v1 with Xeno Goku and Final Form Mira. Well, I think that's a good place to stop for now. Dragon Ball has been going on since the 80s, has been doing transformations like Super Saiyan since the beginning of the 90s, and will continue making more in the future. There will always be forms and power-ups that just get tossed aside and left in the wake of the long journey that is Dragon Ball media. But I don't think that's a bad thing. There's always just something so funny and interesting to look back on with all these forms and see the ideas that went into all these projects. Seeing what worked, what continues to work, and what didn't end up working at all. I definitely miss some forms, so if you got anything you find funny or interesting to share, please leave a comment down below. Also, we are simply 180 subscribers away to 1,000, at least at the time of making this video, so hopefully we can get there real soon. I'll try to think of a fun video topic to celebrate the occasion when we do, and until then, I'll catch you all later.